Hi folks, it's Andrew Gaffney, publisher of the Management Report, and on this episode of DGR TV, I'm here with Anita Wehnert from ReadyTalk. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Andrew.
So we spend a lot of time covering and talking about the changing, buyer and how much buyer behavior is different. It impacts both sales and marketing and how they're doing their jobs. And from ReadyTalk's perspective, I know you guys are really close to this, and you're seeing how folks are using web online events, both in sales and marketing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. I think the buyer's journey is really changing, and people are starting to take themselves a lot more through the buying process before they actually talk to sales.
Self-navigate.
Yeah, and they're really turning to webinars as a kind of a core component of their content marketing strategy.
Right.
And being able to kind of tie into those webinars, use them to communicate their message, bring new prospects into the top of the funnel, and not only just use the webinars and putting on an event, but using them as an opportunity to gather rich behavioral data from prospects, help qualify prospects, learn more about them, and move them through the funnel faster.
That's interesting because we've seen traditionally, I think, webinars viewed more at top of the funnel, more lead gen.
Yeah.
But we're seeing it evolve to where it's also used for nurturing. You talk about some of the intelligence you can gather. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So if you can use, a lot of marketers maybe will use polling questions or survey questions during a webinar in the past to just keep people awake.
Right.
And today what they're doing is starting to use those in a more strategic way, asking questions that are going to help them learn more about the buyer and qualify them. And if you can get that data into a marketing automation platform like Eloqua or Marketo or Pardot or HubSpot and act on that data, being able to lead score off of it, segment people into nurture tracks, that sort of thing, becomes a really powerful way to kind of move buyers through the buying process.
Right. So you touched on content marketing being an underlying trend of all this, and webinars are obviously one of the most key components of a content marketing strategy. But it's also interesting how it's evolving into content curation. So can you talk about webinars' role in that?
Yeah, I think part of it's about content curation, but part of it is also around, not just letting the value of your webinar end with the live event, and really thinking about how you're going to reuse that content from the very beginning of the process. So designing your content that you're going to present so it can be very easily segmented into smaller chunks of information, doing things like transcribing the webinar after the fact, and getting that into other pieces of content like ebooks or blog posts, that sort of thing.
That's a great point. We're trying to do more of that.
Yeah. So we've seen some really good traction there when we do that internally, and our clients are seeing the same as well.
Okay, great. So I want to talk now a little bit more specifically, we're talking broadly about sales and marketing. I want to talk about from a marketer's perspective and how they're approaching webinars.
Okay.
So, when we look at integration points, so obviously in the past, webinars would be in this silo, you'd collect data, and then you'd have to go back and try to tie it back. Can you talk a little bit about how that's changed and how marketers are now able to do more of an integrated approach?
Yeah, I think part of the key to a successful webinar is really empowering sales to kind of use that webinar as something that they can use in their prospecting efforts. So we integrate with Salesforce, for instance, and make it very easy for a sales rep to kind of have access to upcoming webinars and be able to easily invite prospects that they're actively working in their pipeline to a webinar in a more personalized way.
Right.
And then being able to have visibility into that data from webinars, from online trainings, from that sort of thing, right within the leader contact record is going to help them with that tailored follow-up that they need to do to have more effective conversations.
So you bring up sales, and sales would have only taken the leads from a webinar in the past, but now they're getting that intelligence integrated into Salesforce.
Yeah.
You touched on earlier too, it's changing the role a little bit about how sales management can maybe utilize webinars, or you look at webinars.
I think it's
expand on that?
Yeah, from the standpoint of, I think especially for technology companies, online meetings, sales demos play a key role in that selling process.
Right.
And really being able to kind of improve sales efficiency for those reps instead of kind of jumping back and forth between platforms, being able to stay within their CRM system like Salesforce, and from there invite leads or contacts to a sales demo, get that activity automatically recorded in Salesforce, and then from a sales management perspective, having visibility, having that bubble up to a dashboard where they can kind of manage their team's activities, as well as looking at the potential of kind of recording those online meetings and sales demos to kind of go back to after the fact to give some coaching and help those reps become more effective and efficient.
Right. Any other changes you're seeing from a marketing standpoint? As you mentioned, you're now integrated with most of the marketing automation systems.
Yeah, Eloqua, Marketo, Pardot, HubSpot.
Okay.
We also integrate with Salesforce and ExactTarget. So
from that perspective
From that
as well.
perspective. And we're continuing to look at new integrations as we see customer demand and market opportunities. So.
And the intelligence, the ability for a marketer to be able to do that, it's helping them both in building the campaigns for webinars and then the collection after. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So I think part of the effectiveness of webinars is really tied to how quickly and how effectively you can follow up after the event.
Right.
There's an HBR statistic that says, I think if you follow up in 1 to 2 hours versus 24 hours, you're going to see something like a 60x higher conversion rate. So in the past, marketers have had to kind of deal with downloading that data from their webinar platform, cleaning it up, uploading it into their marketing automation platform.
Well, there's a lag there.
And there's a lag,
right.
And it's really, it really does affect conversion rates. With automation, it lets you get that data very easily into whatever platform you're using,
right.
So you can use it for scoring and nurturing and follow-up.
We touched on a little bit earlier in terms of webinars' role as a content platform.
Mm-hmm.
Webinars are becoming a staple for almost every company now. How do you see companies doing a better job of making their webinars stand out, making the experience better?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about tailoring, just like with any other piece of content. Really thinking about who your audience is and what are some of the pain points that are keeping them awake
right.
at night, and then delivering value, giving actionable advice that people can take away, mixing in different types of content, different types of formats of content, panel interviews or multiple speakers or
right.
tips that can easily be segmented, and then being able to kind of put a lot of effort into reusing the recorded content after the fact. I think we've seen a drop-off in attendance rates at live events, at live webinars.
Yeah.
So I think as marketers, we've trained people to know they're going to get the recording.
Available, yeah.
And there's really a lot of opportunity to drive, even 4 or 5x the number of leads from that recorded content after the fact.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation.
Great talking to you as well.
Have a great
Thanks.
day.